Alright folks, today we're going to talk about airplanes. Who doesn't love to talk about airplanes? Specifically, we're going to cover aircraft maintenance as it applies to a private pilot flying a light piston-engine aircraft under visual flight rules, or VFR. This is going to cover your everyday guy or girl who's gone out and got their pilot's license and flies for fun. So the FAA, under Federal Aviation Regulations, Part 43, specifies 3 things that must be done to meet maintenance requirements for aircraft. These 3 things would be inspections, airworthiness directives, and documentation. So, under the inspections, the most important inspection that can be done is your pre-flight inspection. It's done by the pilot every time they walk out to their aircraft to fly. So they walk up, they look over everything in that aircraft. They look over every part of it to make sure nothing's wrong. Most aircraft, depending on the type, have a checklist. Even seasoned pilots will pull this checklist out and check everything off the list as they go around their aircraft. You don't want to have a problem at 10,000 feet above the ground. So, the other inspection that's done is an annual inspection. This inspection is actually performed by an A&P mechanic, or airframe and power plant. This mechanic has gone through school, gone through testing, and been certified by the Federal Aviation Administration to perform maintenance on airframe and power plant. These are the guys you trust with your airplane. So every year, they take those airplanes at some point during the year when it becomes due, and they go over everything about the airplane. They pull off cowlings, they pull out the seats, they'll pull off maintenance hatches, they'll check everything in that airplane. This serves to make sure you're safe to fly every time you go out. So the third inspection that's actually required is a transponder inspection. So the transponder is a piece of equipment that tells control towers or flight centers where you are. So if you're flying around in the air and you call up, they can look down at their radar and actually identify which dot you are. So as you can understand, this might be fairly important if you get lost or if you're in a high traffic area. So every 24 months, the FAA requires your transponders inspected and that it functions. The second part that we talked about was airworthiness directives, specifically compliance to airworthiness directives. Now, airworthiness directives are a lot like vehicle recalls for your everyday motor. So the FAA may see an unsafe condition in an aircraft. They may decide that while the manufacturer said an aircraft was okay for acrobatic maneuvers, the FAA may decide that is not so. So they'll issue an airworthiness directive to say you must put a placard in your aircraft saying it's not certified for acrobatic maneuvers. It could also be something as simple as a manufacturer has created a part and they saw no issues with it when they put it in the aircraft, but the FAA has decided this part creates an unsafe condition and must be replaced. Again, they'll issue an airworthiness directive, and as a private pilot, you must comply, take it, and have the unsafe condition fixed. So, the third part we talked about was documentation. Each aircraft has a logbook for the airframe and a logbook for the power plant. Everything, every maintenance activity is covered and recorded in these logbooks, from an oil change to any major alterations or repairs. Any changes you make to your aircraft, the annuals, any of these inspections we covered, not the daily pre-flight inspection, but the other inspections we covered are all documented there. Really, that covers the 3 things that are required for the FAA to do aircraft maintenance. Again, it was as simple as inspections, airworthiness directives, and documentation. Thank you for your time. Alright folks, today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, aircraft maintenance. So we're going to talk about it today as it applies to a private pilot flying a light piston-engine aircraft under VFR flight rules. The reason we'll do that is that applies to everybody here. Some of you may have IFR licenses, some of you may fly commercial. But we're going to go over just the basic requirements the FAA sets out. So if you're anything like me, back when you were getting your pilot's license, you knew the CFR backwards and forwards. You knew all the rules you had to have to pass your written test. But when it actually came time to own or become a part owner in a small aircraft, you needed to revisit the maintenance requirements. Suddenly, this was your responsibility. So, let's cover what exactly the FAA requires from us as private pilots as far as maintenance goes. So the FAA basically requires 3 things. They require inspections, compliance to airworthiness directives, and documentation. So, under the inspection space, we look at your daily flight inspections. Every time you go out and fly, you do your pre-flight, you fill out your checklist, we've all done it. It's part of what the FAA requires. Second, the FAA requires the annual. It's everyone's favorite time of year. You pull out your checkbook, get ready, and call your favorite A&P mechanic. So the annuals cover everything that we can't do ourselves as private pilots. Third, not all of us know, our A&P mechanics generally cover us on this every 24 months. Your transponder has to be inspected. It's covered during the annual, every other annual. That's all that's required as far as inspections. So moving on, we've got airworthiness directives, or ADs. Some of us have had them come out on our aircraft, and we've had to comply with either a placard or a change in operating, or we've had to call up the A&P again and get our planes out to have something changed. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're big. Looking back in 2013, the FAA grounded Boeing's entire fleet of 787s because of a couple of battery fires. It's a big deal, and it's a big safety issue. You have to keep up with your AD. Moving on to the third part here, as we discussed, was documentation. And we've all got our personal flight logbooks where we log our flight hours, beginning to end, where we've been, what we've done. But, as we're mostly aware, we've got two other logs. One for the airplane's frame, the other for the power plant. That'll log everything that's been done to it, from an oil change to major repairs and alterations. If you haven't looked, take a look at what your A&P puts in there. After the annual, he'll usually make some notes, what he checked, what he tested, and what he changed. It's a good resource to have, and it has to be filled out per the FAA. So, really, we've covered the three main requirements. Again, that's inspections, compliance with airworthiness directives, and documentation. There's really not a whole lot to it compared to a lot of the other flight rules that the FAA has. That's all that's required for us as private pilots in light aircraft under VFR, under FAR Part 43. Thank you guys for your time.